I was just, oh my God, what am I going to do? That's my dream. And, it was all meant to be and it was all lined up and everything. I just didn't know what to do. And then my partner's mum, Hazel, she says, oh, what about the huts on the pier then? So I was like, oh, yeah, we're above the sea.
Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Kris Meredith, founder of the Crystal Hut in Llandudno. Chris's journey with crystals began when he was just 6 years old, after receiving an amethyst from his nana, a gift that sparked a lifelong passion and eventually grew into a thriving crystal business. In this conversation, we talk about the magic and the energy of crystals and how it can support us in life's challenges, and why they're so much more than just stones. Good morning, Kris. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, you're very welcome, and a good morning to you too.
So you're there with Bert, who is your lovely little dog.
He is. We call him the boss. He is the boss man.
The boss. Love it. So, Kris, you have the Crystal Hut, and how did that come about?
So the Crystal Hut, I mean, it's when you kind of things, when things are meant to happen and things are meant to be, this is kind of one of those pinch me moments because it's kind of, I always remember being like younger and kind of thinking I would love a crystal store, one day. And you kind of think, how does anyone even start that? How does that even become?
Yeah.
And you kind of get interested in crystals and things. But my journey started with my late nana, when I was 6 years old, and basically I was quite hyper as a child, and Nana was really into crystals. My whole kind of Meredith side of my family, like my uncle Kris, he's called Kris Meredith, but the C, he's a medium. My nana, and her family, they used to be mediums and used to do tea leaves and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, really?
family, really in the family. But my nana, when I was younger, she used to go to some kind of posh crystal store where I always remember she used to have to put a bag in a locker before you went in.
Oh, it's
And I know, it's not like that at the Crystal Hut, don't worry. And I always remember going there, and this one day she went there and she come back and she's like, I've got you this. I was like, what is it? And she's like, it's an amethyst piece. It'll keep you calm, but it'll also keep you protected. And that, at that age, not really questioning anything. And it absolutely blew my little world because I was like, how can like a stone do that? What?
Yeah.
And like Nana was like, well, it'll give you energy. It'll pass that on to you. And I was like, what? And it really, really kind of like it really did. And I remember I was on the sofa and I was like, how? And looking at it, but it absolutely just got hold of my kind of soul. And that's where it kind of all started. And when I was younger, I used to get £5 a week. That was it. And this is off my other grand, my spending money when I used to do cleaning of a house. And I used to have tropical fish. And I used to spend a little bit of that £5 on some fish. And then I used to spend the other five on my tumblestones. And basically, that's how it started. And what I used to do, I used to sit with my crystals and I would just see how I felt. And then I would write down how I felt. And then generally, that is how I learned. And there weren't many books there, and I didn't really tell many people that was kind of into crystals. My family, even though my nana was kind of in that side, but like my dad never was, my mum never was, sister and brother. So it was kind of like just me in my room with these rocks. And I would just basically, okay, well, this has made me feel like that. This has made me feel like this. And that's how I generally learn for me, but growing up in my life with crystals. And it was then growing up, you find crystal stores and crystal shops, and you naturally grow your collection. But we never come from, a family of money and wealth and things like that. So I never had a lot. So tumblestones for me, and I know they're only small, but if you've seen any of our socials at the Crystal Hut, our main bread and butter for our business and for me to make crystals accessible to everybody is to have a massive display of tumblestones, because that's what I could afford. And of course, we've got the bigger pieces and the statement pieces and things like that. But, it's where it started for me. And that was a whole kind of point of the business, was make them accessible to people as much as possible. And that's what we do day in, day out. And to know that it started from that moment with my nana with a piece of amethyst, and looking back, we're going into our fourth year in 2026. We're going to be four, which is just, blows my mind.
Amazing.
It's just amazing. But it just started from that point. And as I grew up through teenage years and exams and like school, I liked school, but I hated exams. Really, really struggled with those. And if it wasn't for like Tiger's Eye, I wouldn't have
Mhm.
passed my maths or my German. I hated my teachers. We used to get bloody sweets chucked at us and things, and that's what I was in the lower set for maths and things. But, I passed my exams, but it's because I took a piece of Tiger's Eye in with me. And, and I always remember with the maths, all you could take in was a pencil and a calculator. And I
Yeah.
took in a piece of Tiger's Eye and the teacher tried to take it off me. And I was like, look,
Really?
it's a stone, calms me down. And there's, oh, just take it in then, and I did. But before I took it in, I sat with the crystal and I said, please, please, please let me do okay, and I put my
Yeah.
energy into that crystal. And obviously now being older, I know I was utilizing that crystal's energy. I was directing it, but I didn't know that. I just did, and
That's it. Yeah.
I think that that's it. You take everything away, from what people are telling us to do and what, some books are kind of like, got to do this, you've got to do that. And no, I always kind of think, well, actually, I kind of agree with that. I like that. I'm going to kind of put that into my working, but I'm going to do it my way. But
Mm.
my way was through my nana, but then was naturally through my intuition and didn't even know what the stones were called, didn't know what they looked like, but I would just be like, oh, brown stone shining gold. And now
Yeah, yeah.
tiger's eye. But then I didn't, and it's just little things like that where I've kind of learned up and grown up with crystals. And it's like being able to pass that on to little kids now. And our oldest customer's been like 102. Doesn't matter.
Really?
Yeah, which is just amazing. But we get to pass that on every day, and it comes from a genuine place because it's like my life would be very, very different if I wouldn't have sat down with my nana, when I was 6, and it completely changed my life. So, and it helped me. And you get naysayers coming in, and I know, did they really work? And, things
Yeah.
like that. But I always think, for me, that's like it's like a little battle of kind of, oh, I'll show you they work.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you simplify things for people and you bring it down kind of so they can use it in their life, and it's kind of think, well, you've got a mobile phone, haven't you? Yeah. Well, that's got crystals in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You use your microwave, don't you? It's got crystals.
Yeah.
Circuit boards, they've got quartz in them.
Yeah.
So people are using crystals and not knowing they're using crystals. So when you kind of,
Exactly.
bring it into their reality a little bit, it's just amazing. And then they're like, oh, right. Okay. All right. Oh, well, go on then. I'll try one. But when they walk out with one, it's like, get in.
Yeah, got ya. I always remember having a conversation with a security guard when I was doing a crystal fair. And he come up to me, lovely bloke, but he's like, yeah, but what's it all about? Right. And we were having a chat. I said, oh, well, you use them for different things, they carry different energies. And I explained it all to him. He went, yeah, but, a bit like it's for kids, really. And I said, no, I said, it's for everybody. And he says, well, does it really work though? And he's a bit like that, a bit like, And I said, do you wear a watch? He went, yeah. He said, hey, actually. And he answered his own question. He went, hey, he said, my watch, my watch is a quartz watch. I'm like, has that penny not dropped yet, fella? I said, yeah. I said, so your watch is powered by quartz then? He went, yeah. I said, well, that's quartz in front of you. If it's not the same thing. Well, of course it's the same bloody thing. Do you know what I mean? So people don't realise, do they?
No,
That's what
they
gets
don't.
me.
They don't. And I love that. I really, really love it. I mean, because there's a little story, and I think I talk about it a little bit in the book as well, where I had a really, really lovely woman and man come into the store, and the lady, she was really into crystals, and the husband was just like, not forced and a bit like,
Yeah,
not for me all this, not for me all this and stuff.
yeah.
And anyway, she's like, look, she says, we've moved into this house, and she said there's been no one in it for years, but the gentleman next door doesn't like now that he's got neighbours, and he's throwing rubbish over, and he's throwing, not just being very nice, and he's an older man. And she said, we don't know what to do. She said, we've gone to the council and we're at our wits' end. She says, what can you recommend? And the husband's just like, we'll try anything then. And then so I said, look, I said, have you heard of black obsidian? And she's like, yes. And I said, well, it's a crystal for protection. And I said, but it'll protect your boundary. I said,
Mhm.
keep that space where it should be. Keep your energy where it should be. But if anything's coming at you, it will basically keep their energy where it should be and protect you. And I said, get some small tumble stones, and I said, bury them in your land boundary, where your land is. I said, all the way from the start of your gate through your house and then through your garden. And I said, and completely bury them and then see what happens. And husband's a bit like, right, we'll give it a try then. Yeah, go on then, and everything. And then probably I completely forgot and then sent them on the way. That was that. They come in about 6 months later. This hand just appeared from around the door. He went, let me shake your hand, gentlemen. He went, he's moved out. And he moved out, and
Really?
I didn't believe. And he said, I do now. And I said, but that's it. And I think, the crystals work whether you believe them or not. Their energy is there. It's scientifically proven, they have a frequency, they have an energy. But it's kind of like, I always think, people are in relationships, people know love is there. We can't see it, but we know it, we believe it. Everyone out there trusts it. But yet, when there's a crystal there, and then they're like, oh, has it got energy? Well, of course it has. Simple as that. And it's like, why is it harder for them to believe that they can physically see?
Feel it. They can feel it as well.
Of course you can. Then when you kind of think, well, yeah, well, I know love's there. Well, of course it is. Well, you see it, you can't feel it, you can't touch it, but you believe it. That's always the kind of thing. Why is that harder for some people? But that gap though is getting ever so smaller. When I was like 16, 17, and I used to wear all my crystals, and I used to hide them. So I used to put them like under my t-shirt. I thought, oh no, people think I'm a bit strange. I don't want that being a teenager, and I'll keep them on. And I used to be really kind of a bit conscious of, oh God, I don't want people to know I'm wearing them. And it's kind of like fast forward to now, and it's just like a normal thing. And I love when it's kind of in your normal media, when it's on TV, when it's in your magazines, and you see it. But it should be normalized, and we're getting ever so close.
Very much so.
People like yourself, people like me, moving that conversation forward for people to know, and it's that wellness is being kicked around like no one's business today and things. But you kind of think that, especially the kids that are into crystals, and maybe because of TikTok or Minecraft, have found crystals that way. Doesn't matter how they find them. It's that it's real. Black obsidian's real, but I've seen it, on Minecraft and kind of thing. And he said, well, do you know it's a crystal for protection? They're like, what? But then they're learning about crystals, not knowing they're learning about crystals, but then they can take that with them like I did growing up. Kind of think, well, I'm going for a bit of a hard time. Right, I'll reach my amethyst today. I'm not feeling 100%. Okay, well, something's going on. Energy's not right. I'll reach my black obsidian. Just little things like that is how I've lived my life and how I still do, day in, day out. Energy's feeling a bit weird. That last night was that the blood full moon. Everything, get rid of everything that we don't need. I did a little ritual for me. A lot of people will have out there as well. But just bringing those little bit of nods. It doesn't have to be all dancing around naked in a full moon.
No, it doesn't. No.
I mean, if you want to do that, go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, that's it. But it's kind of like making things work for us in our like reality of life. That's what I think. And bringing crystals into people's lives where they'll generally wake up, okay, I need that crystal today, need that crystal today, and make it faff free, and have a little, you doing what you do, me doing what I do, we're making that little bit of a difference. And that is why I believe, we're kind of doing what we're supposed to be doing, because the crystals, I've always believed, I trust them completely. And because I trust them, they look after me.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I've seen a big rise in the children now knowing. I know it's some of it's to do with Minecraft, because like you said, a couple go, oh, they've got obsidian. Oh, you've got, but I've noticed a lot of children knowing what crystals are, and they seem to have a pre-knowledge. I think it's really odd. I feel like it's partly to do with the children that are being born now and having a natural connection to the earth, having a natural connection to crystals.
Yeah.
But that takes us back to the conversation we were having earlier. I know when I've done fairs before, and we've talked about affordability and not needing a massive piece or anything like that. I mean, I have tumbles, and I think some of my tumbles are £1.20. And I always believe that if you can't have, I have a lot of tumbles when I do my fairs, and I just think if children are coming with a little bit of pocket money, and even the ones that don't get a lot, most families can now say, well, look, you can have that for £1.20. And that child then hasn't missed out on something that could massively, massively help.
Yeah.
You know, so I just feel like, yeah, like you say, it's nice to have the big pieces. I have some lovely big pieces, but I also carry loads of little pieces with me all the time. I have them in my bag, I have them in my purse, in my car, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
But if everybody can have access to just a little bit, I just think, do you know what? What are we setting forward? We're raising the vibration forward, aren't we? You know?
Completely. And that's it. And it's that accessibility, you know, people just having that access and just knowing, okay, well, I've got that. Well, okay, well, I can afford that and I can have this and I can have that. And, you know, the same vibration is off a little tumble stone is a big piece. It doesn't matter. You know, what you're drawn to, you're drawn to. And if you can, amazing. If you can't, there's other options for people. And it's as simple as that. You know, you don't always have to have the most shiniest, the newest crystal. And, you know, there's a big thing about like Moldavite, and we always call it Moldy V. You know, and that crystal, like when I was 16 and I first come across Moldavite, I just shoved it on, just thinking it was like any other crystal, like an idiot, you know, like I tell people not to now. Put it on when I was working at Bradford and Bingley back in the days, if you remember that. And I was like, I feel drunk. Why do I feel
sick? Yeah.
Why do I feel like I'm going to throw up and stuff? And then at the time, and the lady said, "What, you wearing it like that, boy? You shouldn't be wearing it like that," and give you an absolute rollicking for it, you know. And I just kind of think, you know, I've learned, you know, my way, you know, within that. And it's like now, and I've always been, you know, cautious of it, but kind of having the time to sit with it and understand it and learn about it properly is that I back then just didn't respect the crystal.
Yeah.
But now, you know, obviously I'll take tight, you know, like now, of course, you respect it, it will look after you, but there's so much kind of misconception out there. You know, so many people come in the store and be like, "Oh, you've got that green stuff there."
Yeah, we're not touched that.
It's, you know, but it's because it's a crystal of transformation for a reason. But a lot of people have started to work with it, not done the research like I did those years ago, you know. But if you let it do what it's supposed to do, it will do what it needs to do. It'll put you where you need to be. But people aren't ready for it, which is absolutely fine. Some people are ready for it. You know, I've had a customer for 2 years, and an ahhing. Is it the right time?
Really?
And it's for me to be there when it is the right time and then make the purchase, make sure they're okay with it, because not everybody is. And there's tips and tricks you can do to lessen the energy of it, but it's all about putting people where they should be in their life and removing blocks and obstacles out of people's way so they can be their higher self. And that's it. That's what Moldavite does. Moldy V does, you know, and that's it. But a lot of people get it. Gets rid of the boyfriend, gets rid of the job. They're freaking out. Oh my God, taking it off.
Never ruined my life.
Ruined my life. That's it. But that's because they've not let it do. It's full circle. And if you, know, trust, that's a big thing. If you trust that it will do, and that's not just for Moldavite, that's for all crystals. If you put your faith and your trust in them, they will always have your back. And it's simple as that. You know, it's every day you get people coming in because of TikTok or where's that crystal that wrecks people's lives, and they talk about, you know, and it's just like, it doesn't, you know. And I said, it will bring round the good. I said, but you've just got to let it go through that process. It's got to purge. It's got to get rid of things that are blocking us, you know, for so much, you know, we put personal blocks in ourselves. You know, we want to be there, but actually I'm scared of going there, so I'm happy here. What's a block?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
We'll
remove it, you know, and some people are scared of, oh, but whatever removes that, I'm not comfortable. Well, you won't grow. What do you want?
Yeah.
You know,
what do you want? That's the thing, isn't it?
That's it. You know, it's all fun and games, but it's misunderstood. That's the way I always look at it for Moldavite.
Yeah. So how did the shop come about then? Were you selling crystals before the shop, or?
Well, kind of, no. I wasn't. So my job before the Crystal Hut and everything, I was a presenter for Psychic Today. So
you really?
Yeah, so on Sky. So I presented. So I used to host there.
Hang on a minute. Am I talking with a celebrity?
Not really. No, lovely.
Do I need an autograph sending or what? What's going on here?
Not be daft. No, just normal me. With it. But yeah, so I did so I used to host shows for them for just about over 2.5 years. The studios was in Milton Keynes. I just used to host the show. So basically the best way to describe it is that it was a shopping channel for psychics.
Yeah.
and that's it. So I would be in the studios. I would host the show, and then there'll be you'd have two or three psychics physically with you in the night, and then people would log on from home, and then
Oh,
everybody would take readings. But for me, I had to try and make sure that the studio psychics were the busiest in the
yes.
booths and stuff. But within it, you would do, there's only so much you could do because of Ofcom then. It's a little bit more
Yeah.
relaxed now. So you can never say the word mediumship and things like that. You get in
Really?
trouble, yeah, if you would mention things like that. So you'd have to, and even like tarot cards and stuff, you'd be like, oh, your deck of cards and little things that we could do. But yeah, so I did that for 2.5 years, and then obviously lockdown, the big change came,
Yeah.
and then we started to do the shows from home, which I thought was amazing. Very much set up like this. Don't have to, an hour and a half, 2 hours to Milton Keynes. I can do it from my bedroom.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And the shows kept getting less and less and less. And then I got a phone call just a day before my birthday in the June of 2021, that I was being made redundant. So as you can imagine, I was very gutted and
Yeah.
like, how am I going to do and stuff. And normally in that instance, I would put kind of pressure on myself, right? Go and find something else now. Go and audition. And I just didn't. Basically, I said, and I basically, whatever you want me to do, I will do. Put it in front of me and I will do it. And that's how
Yeah.
I left it. And like originally I come from Stalybridge in Greater Manchester, but we lived in Castlefield in the city in Manchester. But everything, because of lockdown, everything was it was noisy, it was busy, and I was just tired of the city. And for the whole of lockdown, I kept just putting out, I wanted to be by the sea because we always come on holiday. Like Paul's gran, she lived to just 102, which is just amazing, with it, which is just absolutely epic. But
Yeah.
we always used to bring it to like Llandudno or Conway, and we for 2 weeks of the year we would always come in North Wales, and this would always be my happy place. And when I used to go back to Manchester, used to be a bit sad for like 2 or 3 days and like a bit of mourning kind of thing. But then you'd kind of energy would reset and you'd kind of like right back in the city now, and that's that. So I kind of put in want to be by the sea all the time for out of lockdown, and then obviously with Psychic Today kind of ending, that was an ending. And if that wouldn't have ended, I probably would never have ended it, if that makes sense.
No.
This would have gone on. So that was made for me. And then in the September of 2021, we stayed up. There's a big, it's called the Great Orme in Llandudno. It's actually a big malachite mound. Would you
Oh,
believe
is
it?
it?
And then underneath the Orme, there's ley lines as well. So it's quite a spiritual place.
Never.
Yeah, that run underneath
Want
it.
to go.
And of course, and the pier. So you've got like the big Orme here, and the pier just runs like here. So it's like right next door to the Orme. And then so we stayed up there, come on holidays, we normally do, and we went into Llandudno. And now wherever I go, and even like now, I still look for crystal stores, witchy stores, and I just spend hours in them. People, God,
Yeah.
clothes. You've got your own stores. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Strange boys here again. With it, and I do love them. And anyway, there was a store called Merry Moon, and on the Monday it was closed. So I said, well, before we go home, we need to go. So on the Saturday we went in, and there was a lovely lady there called Karen, and speaking to her about angels and crystals, and for ages. And partner Paul, he's like, come on, gotta go home, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then we went home, Manchester, feeling sad, and get a message on Facebook, and she found me on Facebook, and she just says, oh, I'm thinking about selling my business. Would
Never.
you be interested? So I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is, you know what I mean? I was like, near the sea. Oh my God,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a new town, different change. And I basically, hell for leather, right? What do I do now?
Having
How
it.
much push you want for it? Blah, 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 blah. Talked about that. And at the time, you could get like a government startup loan. I had no money, of course. So you had to do that, the business plan through, I think it was British Business Bank, I think it was then. You had to do like a proper business plan and get everything ready, and which Paul helped with massively. Did that, got the money that she needed to buy the business. So I was like back and two from Manchester to Llandudno, skipping and happy and like, oh my God. And then in the November,
One edge of a state. Oh, I'm excited.
I know,
Get it a lot.
I was just no, but in November, then she messaged me again on Facebook, and she says, "Oh, changed my mind.
Never.
Can't sell you the business. I'm so sorry." So you can imagine, I was just 3 days, like
Oh,
just inconsolable. I was just, oh my God, what am I going to do? That's my dream. And, it was all meant to be, and it was all lined up. And everything. I just didn't know what to do. And then my partner's mum, Hazel, she says, "Oh, what about the huts on the pier then?" So I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're above the sea." So I was like, "Yeah." So that moment, it was on a Thursday. I rang up the pier. I'm like, "Hi, my name's Chris, and have you got any huts available?" And then there's a gentleman who's still there called Simon, and he was like, "Well, we've got some huts available. What would you be selling?" And I said, "Crystals." And he was like, "What?" I said, "Crystals." He went, "Rocks. We've got them on the beach." I said, No. Chris, can I come down?" And I said, "Show you what I mean." And he was like, "Go on then." So on the Friday, I booked my train on the Friday, went down. Luckily, there was a lady called Kerry that was in the office, and she went, "Crystals." She went, "Yes." She said, "We need that. We need that."
Really?
She understood it. And like Simon, they're like, "Don't get it." He still doesn't, he's like, "What?" With it. And then so Kerry showed me around the huts, and back then there was like 5 that was available, and they weren't in the best nick, and they just use them for storage and things. And I walked into my hut that was full of boxes and just not in the best nick, and I was like, "This is it. This is it."
Yeah.
And she was like,
Yeah.
"What?" She went, "I've got to show you the." I said, "Nope." I said, "This is it." I said, "I need to sign for this now." She went, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." I said, "If I don't do it," I said, "just let me sign for this now." And I didn't speak to Paul. I didn't. I just did it.
Yeah. Just did it.
But the thing is, though, and this is what I always think, when you're kind of led to something, I didn't worry. I had nowhere to live. I didn't even think about. I said, "We'll get a tent on the arm if we have to." Me and Bert, and that was it. And partner Paul, very much our life was in Manchester. He was a area manager for Costa there, so everything was rooted in
Brilliant, I
Manchester.
guess.
So, and at times
Life's there, isn't it? Yeah.
he was working there, and it's like, but it was just, I didn't worry about it, and I didn't. Looking back, like now, you'd be like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, what have I
I don't
done?
like,
Yeah.
I don't know where to live. What am I going to do for money? What happens if it doesn't work? But I just didn't, and because that kind of like it was kind of not forced upon me, but because that option was given to me, it's like, just do it, just do it. And like, my brother's a shop fitter, so he helped kind of fit the shop out, more cheaper and stuff. I only still had that original budget of what I got from the British Business Bank to set it all up. So everything was kind of set up on a shoestring, to be honest. And my brother did what he could do with it, but it was just in like from the day one. So that was like the November, the December, and then we were kind of setting up the store. And I remember kind of thinking, like, what do we call it? And obviously it's an old Victorian hut. It's been there for over 150 years. Like, it's a hut, the Crystal Hut. That's it. And it was simple as that, and it was like, because that's what it is. We sell crystals and we're a hut, and it's only a small, it's probably only at the space that you're sat in, and it's not a big space by any means, but it just was. But I will always believe that we was meant to be in that location. It's like Karen at Merry Moon led us to there, planted the seed, and then it wasn't meant to be. But within the book, and one thing that's strange is that we actually had pictures taken basically adjacent to my hut when we was on holiday that year. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Where me, Paul and Bert actually had. So there.
Stop it.
There you go.
And that's a cross.
That's a cross from my hut. Paul, so he's got pets on the pier now. He's actually in there.
Is it? Oh, I love that.
But when we were setting up and just kind of getting everything together, with it, Paul, obviously business and all that kind of stuff. When you think, things change, and he was kind of like just fed up with the corporate world and just stressed, and it would have killed him. It's just I don't get it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "I've had enough." So I come home one day. He's like, "Right, I've quit." I was like, "Huh?" He was
Just
like,
like that.
"Yeah, I'm done." I was like, he said, "I'll help you set up the Crystal Hut. We'll be okay for a little bit." And he said, "We'll be all right." I was like, "But I only live. I've got a 1 bedroom in a little B&B. It's only me and Bert. Luckily we found a lovely couple just up from the pier that let us stay for £20 a night. Did our breakfast, did us our tea, let Paul stay. So there were 2 of us in a bedroom, and it was all the wood chip walls, and didn't matter. It was like a new beginning, and it was like magical and everything. And it was just like, well, just do it. And then facing from us, there was a furniture stall. They left the pier for a year. And then Paul was like, "There's nothing for dogs on here." Said, "Should we do it?" So we got the pendulum out, asked it, said, "Yeah." So we did it. And, you know, and a month later, so we opened in the February 10th, 2022, Crystals opened. And a month later, Paul opened Pets on the Pier. So we both, you know, from that little spark,
Yeah.
it completely changed our life. But not in one little moment did I ever worry, did I ever think, oh my God, it's not going to work. And, you know, and I remember my first customer, I always wish, I never took a picture with her, and I always wish I did. And she bought a little key ring, you know, for like, I think it was like £1.50 or whatever. And, but I set up the Crystal Hut with no intent at all. It was just pure, I want to be by the sea. I want to
Yeah.
sell the crystals, you know, and because they've always been with me, not in a business way, but they've helped me so much. And it's
Yes.
kind of like I've learned for me, and it was like, okay, now's your time. What I was always meant to do, really, is then right to pass your knowledge on to other people, you know. And it is a business, of course. We've got, you know, staff to pay, got rent to pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the physical things we've got to pay,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
but everything's fair with who we are. Everything's accessible. But the thing is, because of our original location, and everyone's like, oh, where's your main store? And it's always the pier, because that is the beating heart of the whole business. That is the reason why we're here, is because of the pier. And I will always believe that the Crystals wanted to be there first, you know, and
That's
then
it.
the reason why we've got two shops in the same town is because 6 months later, Karen, who owned Merry Moon, was like, right, I want to get rid of it now. And I were like, no, 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 you've hurt me once, you know,
Yeah.
you've really hurt me once. I was like, nope, nope, nope. But I didn't believe it was going to happen. And then it did. And then we had a shop in the town as well. And it was just
So you ended up getting that shop in the end up.
yeah. And that's it. And one thing that's lovely, if you stand at the end of the street, you can see both.
Can you?
You can see the pier, and you can see it's called
Yeah.
It's on Clonwell Street in Llandudno, and you know it's just magical. And then so we had two, which is just like, oh, okay, you know, here we go, you know. And then a year later, then Chester, the lady that was in control of making that, had been to our store on the pier and Clonwell, and they was making a brand new market, which isn't like a normal market. It's a beautiful champagne bar, cocktails, and it's beautiful. And she said, oh, we think your store would fit lovely. Would you be interested? So, like, I've never gone out there kind of thinking, oh, we want to do this. I want
Looking for it. Yeah, yeah.
it's done it naturally by itself. And you know, we've never changed anything. You know, the we've got the crystals, got the tumbles, and everything is pink. I love pink, you
Yeah.
know, and it wanted to be, but everything, even, you know, people, it's a misconception that, you know, people think, you know, you're busy all the time, and we try and open all the time on the pier all year, you know, completely.
Yeah.
But like this year, unfortunately, in December, we had that really, really bad storm, that storm Dara.
Yes.
And like right at my hut, we had over 100-mile-an-hour winds, and the hut next to me blew off. Do you know what I mean? We got a message that day that we're going to lose the pier, and it was at high tide and things. So, you know, it's not always easy, you know, there's always something that
Yeah.
kind of, but with us, and one thing that's magical, and everything that could have happened that day, you know, that hut next to me went, one at the end that had Kelly's ice cream that went in the sea with all the ice cream and everything. And, you know, and it was terrible. But for us, the lead off my roof lifted, you know how heavy lead could be, that all lifted off, and two, like the old Victorian windows blew. But of everything that could have been on the floor on my hut, three pieces of black obsidian that was basically just on their shelf, but on the floor away, because we had damage to our hut a little bit. The pier let us on for 20 minutes. And when I opened my door, the only thing in the middle of my hut was a big piece of black obsidian.
Really?
You know, and that's a crystal for protection, you know, and I get tingled every day because it's kind of like it looked after us. And I think it looked after here, you know, that day, and us being there and having the energies we do, and me listening and showing up, you know, as much as we do. You know, we don't have the days in winter when I see one or two people, you know, and I'm like, oh, you know, it's freezing. Why am I here? You know, but then you'll get that one person that'll come down, that's at a low ebb, don't know why they've come to our store, you know, and been like, I've needed to come to see you today.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, that is what we do. And it is, and they leave better.
Hi, I'm just taking a quick break to thank you all so much for listening to the podcast and for all your lovely support. If this episode gave you something to think about or simply felt helpful, you can support future episodes and my tea habit over at Buy Me a Coffee. The link is buymeacoffee.com/guide to spirituality. Every little bit helps me keep creating, sharing and growing this space, and I'm truly grateful.
Yes, the conversations we have, I love being on the pier in the summer months that we've just had. We open until 10, 11 o'clock at night, which is, crystal shopping by night. Do you think people shop for crystals at 11:30 at night? Yes, they do.
Yes.
But the conversations and the people and the connections we've made since we've opened, our life is so much richer for that.
Yeah.
It's all because, we was led to open crystals. And it's like when you get those people and like, oh, it's all fooey and this and that, and it's like, now I have to have a talk with myself sometimes, because when like I love anything shiny, I love anything that like angel aura quartz and things, and and like rainbow aura quartz is a big one, and of course it doesn't naturally come out the ground like that.
No.
But it's quartz crystal, so it's a real crystal. It just goes through a process. It has, you've got your color around it, and then it's got your titanium and your platinum and things like that adhere to it that make it look really shiny and really lovely. But I love it. Still your quartz, not going to change much. Still your master crystal, but you'll get someone that'll be like, it's fake. It's fake.
Yeah.
And that gets me back up. So I go out and I'm like, what's fake? I don't sell anything fake. And then she's like, well, look, that's not come out the ground like that. I said, no, of course it's not. I said, but what they do, it goes through a process. I said, but it always should be, always check that it's your quartz crystal, because some won't be somewhere.
Yeah.
But mine, I said, we get them from Brazil, know where they come from, I know the miner. And I said, but then it goes through a process. And I said, and it's your platinum's adhered to it. I said, it's coloured. I said, it'll never come off. And I said, but I'm like a magpie, like anything shiny, anything beautiful. And I said, I absolutely love it. I said, that's why we got it. I said, but it's still your quartz crystal underneath, so it's still a real crystal, and it's kind of like me being like, yes. You get people that just walk off going, moo, 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 and things like that. But it's kind of like, no. Don't do anything fake here, and that's it. And I wouldn't do that. And it's kind of like, I said, but have fun with crystals as well. Why not? I love it. It's like our manager in Chester, Alex, he don't like anything like oralized or anything, but I love it. And I said, I would love an amethyst dipped in it. I just think he's like, no, you'd ruin it. No. And I was like, but it looks so glam. I said, well, I know. I said, it's like just putting a bit of lip gloss and a bit of like highlighter on it. There we go. I said, it's like Saturday night. And he's like, no, but you'll ruin it. I said, but it doesn't ruin its energy. I said, it just looks like.
No, it don't. No. I personally, I prefer the raw pieces. Is my personal
preference, which is amazing.
And that's it. And it's like, it comes out the ground and it comes to you, and that's it. However, I would like it here. I've got my dragonfly, my Mossagate dragonfly there. I absolutely love that. The dragonfly is a big part of my spiritual path, but that is not worth anything less because it's been polished than a rock. It's just, it's different, isn't it? That's all. So you've just, like I say, you mentioned the book. So you just sent out, you just got the book out. Now I've got a copy of the book and I haven't opened it yet, only because I thought we'll talk about it first, and I didn't want to pre-open it knowing I wanted to see after.
No, but the thing is, and one thing that's embarrassing, I mean, well, it's so now it's sold out twice. So we've done something like, so for me and the whole journey of doing this book, I mean, this is one of the not for resale, that's the only one I've got. So like this morning I was like, I've not even got a copy of my own book.
Never.
Like with it, but the whole process of doing a book, and you'll know, it's you've got this whole process of, okay, well, I've got this idea, I need to go to a publisher, I need to do this. They come back going, no, don't want your book, that's that. Well, what do you do? And I went through the kind of process, the right process of getting the book published. And with this, I did publish it with a publisher, but I would never do it again with a publisher. Just because it's kind of like the whole, even when I was shopping it around and the idea, first of all, I was going to go with a different publisher, but then they try and change things, and then the book wouldn't be mine.
Not yours.
No, and that's one thing I didn't like. And for me, and one of the main things of the Crystal Hut Journal. So it's all about explore, experience, love the power of crystals, but it's about my journey, customer stories. But one of the most important aspects of it is you making it your journey,
Yeah.
your story, and then it becomes ours.
That's
Because
it.
that happens every day. Customers come in, I tell them my information, they put their bit to it, they leave, it's now theirs. And that
That's
was
it.
the whole kind of birth of the book. But some bigger publishers out there was kind of like, well, people in America aren't going to really connect with that. So you don't need your customer stories in there. You don't really need to talk about
Oh no.
of the pier, and they're not going to know where it is. So you need to remove that. And my last email I had from one of the publishers, well, we were thinking of syncing the book. I went, syncing the book? What? I was like, no one's got that power. It's my book. You ain't got that power. And I read onto it and I just never got back to them. And this was before they was going to say, yep, it can be published only if I remove the customer stories out, I remove the elemental bits out. And it just kind of like, no. So I just thought, I need to reset on this. And I need
That's
to,
it.
because then it's not me, it's not who I am. It's becoming something about sales, which at the end of the day, I'm not bothered about, which I never am. I'm never kind of
No, no.
in touring, I know you've got to be a little bit business and things like that, but for me, it's the message of the book, which was more important. I don't care about someone in America connecting with it. For me,
It doesn't matter if somebody knows about the hut on the piers, does it, in America? If that's where it is, it's your story.
and that's it. And it's the essence, of the book. And it's about it connecting with the people that I've connected with. And it's about being in the stores and people, which I've just been absolutely overwhelmed with, people really connecting with it and wanting me to sign it, which I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get a posh pen,
Foil, you've got them quill things with dipper and everything.
Oh, love. Well, I got a nice Sharpie, got a nice pink Sharpie, love, with it, which I had to. But when because I had to change it online as well, because so many people were saying, "Oh, can I have it signed?" I was like, "What?" And I was like, "So, I'm not the best at spelling and things like that." So I was like, "Can you write your name down, please, so I don't get it wrong?" And and things like that. But it's absolutely blown me away. But the whole process, it took about 2 years. Going back into to different publishers and things, and then I found a small hybrid publisher with Rowanvale Books, which have been lovely. But the whole process still hasn't been easy with them, because it's kind of like, but one thing I've been so important with is that nothing has changed. And that's one thing which has been amazing for them. It's not changed. At the beginning, it's the same as it is now. You go through the whole edit process and they might say, oh, reword this a little bit better and things like that. Or how do you feel about this? And they give you that kind of breathing space. Actually, I prefer it like that. Or actually, no, that adds to it. Thank you. Which is good with it. But what I would do now, and a bit of a exclusive one for you, Bertie, has been quite a busy boy with his own little book as well. He has. So he's doing his little Crystal Hut adventures.
Yes, sir.
It is, but it's a children's book with it. But I've done that whole process by myself because I'm a bit of a stickler. When someone tells you, no, you can't do it, or takes that power away from you, like, nope, 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 I kind of, right, how can I do this by myself? And I wanted to figure the whole process of on KDP, how do you kind of format it? What do you do about the designs? What do you do with all this? So kind of on my downtime for the past 3.5 months, I've done Bert's little story, his little book, and it's all good to go. Like tomorrow, the final kind of copy comes where I tick it off, and then I can order the proper copies, and then we can put it on sale. I think the day it's going to be the 1st of October when Bert's book goes on sale. But if I was ever going to do my book again, or if we're going to do a second book, a follow up, or whatever, I would do it myself now because, for one, even though this is my book and it's my story, I still don't own this. Rowanvale own this because it's through them. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like they control that, which is fine. I went through the process. I had to learn, but you want it to be yours. So I always have that conversation with yourself, but it's learning. I've learned so much through the process, and it's kind of like, always get someone to second, read your work and proofread and things like that and make sure you're happy with it. But it's kind of like, you need to be happy with that not being your work. You'd want it published through one of the big kind of publishing houses, but you don't need to. That's one of the biggest things. Just to be the next whoever, you don't need to be published by the big publishing houses. You don't need them because, I speak to, like you used to interview many different people, Diana Cooper, Lorna Byrne, and, even because they've got a massive big publisher house above them, do they offer anything more? No. Do they do any more social content for them? No. Do they help them with more sales? No. So why do people do it? Because that used to be the only way.
That's it, yeah.
But now it's not, and it's kind of just taking that time. If you want to put, a deck out there, a lot of people go to China to get theirs printed and stuff like that. Figure out where they go. Google it, the internet's a good place these days. Shop around and things. It takes time, but if you're doing it for you, do it for you properly. So you own. I always say it's like do a Taylor Swift moment. If you want to own everything, put that groundwork in there. With a book, one of the biggest things I think from a book is formatting it first. Because if you don't do that, and that's the thing with Bert's where I had to learn. I was like, what do you mean sizes? What do you mean bleeds? What's that pullable go with that? What do you mean that? And I had to learn that. I'm not a design person or anything, but it's kind of like, okay, make some notes. Well, that's got to be that size. Well, if that don't work, that's got to be that size. Okay, well, and I just did it all on Canva. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And I'm really proud. Obviously of my book, of course I am, and everything. But when Bert's book, it's kind of like, it's going to be amazing. And there's an energy with it, which is just because everyone, when I say he's the boss, he is the boss. People come far and wide to see Bert. Even though he's 13 now, so he's a little bit older, and he's a bit like, look, I know I'm a celebrity, but I need my sleep. Do you know what I mean? There's a bit like that. And he likes to, on the way down to the pier, because we're halfway down, he likes to wee on every bench and sniff every bit. And it's a bit like, mate, we've got to open by 10 o'clock. We ain't got time, and I've got to drag him sometimes. He's not happy with me and everything. But it's kind of like, just to do this story with Bert is lovely because at one, he goes on his own little journeys. And I'll tell you a little bit about it, is where basically Tiger's Eye crystal, he opens up one morning with me, and the amethyst whispers to him, something's gone on. The Tiger's Eye crystal's gone missing, the crystal of luck. So then Bert's like, oh my God. So he goes on his little journey and then tries to find this tiger's eye. On his way, he meets Rosie the rose quartz mermaid. That gives him the rose quartz and remembers and says, look, take this with you. It's all about love. He meets Tommy the tortoise that's in a selenite cave. That's giving him the energy to go on his journey to find this tiger's eye. And then he finds it up this mountain and he's overjoyed. He goes to it, but then there's a smoky quartz dragon there that's basically looking after this tiger's eye and won't let him have it. But then remembers what Rosie said, gift this rose quartz heart to somebody. And he does. And then basically the dragon's really happy and lets him pass with the tiger's eye. And then Bert brings it back to the crystal hut. And all the fairies and the elves and everyone's very, very happy. That's it in a snapshot.
Oh, exciting.
But it's really, really sweet, But I've always said he's kind of like the crystal keeper because he loves the energy in there as well. But he's always, with me, with crystals, with incense, and it's very much a part of his life because if you kind of think, he's become a working dog really, and later on in his life, and it's kind of like, and people have come from. I had a lady that's been on holiday from New Zealand and knew about Bert, and I was like, what? I've seen you on TikTok. I'm in this part of the world. Is he here? I was like, we're sneaking up there, love. You know what I mean? And that's.
I know. We used to have furniture shop. We used to have workshop, and we used to take Dexter with us. He's an old staffer now.
Dexter.
But because he's very, very sociable, extremely sociable. And as people used to come in, he'd met this I can't explain this noise he'd make. And it was almost like he was shouting hello. And people had come up who is it? And they'd put this paw over, little serving bit we had.
Yeah.
People would be like, oh. And they'd stay for ages and end up, you'd be selling a kitchen, a chest of drawers. And all because he'd been right engaging with it, honestly. With the
That's it. I was like, well done, mate. You earned your keep.
Yeah.
Hey, pal. Well done.
Why are you the month over here?
Yeah.
So just before we go then, so if somebody came to you and said, look, Kris, I ain't got a bloody clue.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in getting into crystals. Where do I start? What would your advice be?
So for me, is just keep it really, really simple. And nobody knows your energy like you. Regardless, if you don't know anything about crystals or spirituality or anything, you know yourself first. So when you go into a crystal store, might come and see you, one of your stores might come into the crystal hut. When you walk in, it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of crystals. But I always say just spend a little bit of time with yourself and then just see what calls you. Touch it, feel it, see how you link with it. Sometimes that's not for me, but this is where your intuition steps up. And you kind of think the crystal will speak to you, your intuition will connect with it, and then basically they'll connect, and that's how you know what crystal's for you. And it's as simple as that. A crystal doesn't care what it looks like, what color it is, what shape it is. It's only us when we put that like, so many people go, I'm really drawn to that. I don't like the color. And like, well, then you're undoing the work that the crystal's doing, that your intuition's doing, and a crystal couldn't care what it looks like. So if you're drawn to it, you're drawn to it. And it's a big thing where just using that intuition, it will never, ever let you down, ever. And depending what we're going through, I always say, okay, if you're walking down the pier one day and someone shouts an horrible name at you, you're going to be in a bad mood. So then you're going to come in our crystal hut, and your vibration will be different. If you're coming down the pier and someone said, oh my God, you look gorgeous, what have you done to you? You'll be well happy. So your vibration will be different. So depending where we are vibrational wise as well, will determine what crystals we need. So there's many different factors, but if anything you can take from this, just keep it simple. There's a lot of noise out there saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't put those crystals together, you can't do this, but that's somebody's journey. That's somebody's personal experience, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. If 2 or 3 crystals that someone's saying, nope, you can't put them together, if they work together for you, that's perfect. And that's the way I've always done it is, always take on someone's advice. I always think, yep, I'll listen to it. Yep. Does that sit with me? Not really. Trust that.
Always.
What works for you doesn't already, work for somebody else. And it's as simple as that. And like, you don't have to start big. Start off small. I used to buy a tumble stone a week, sit with it, have it with me, under my pillow, everywhere, lose it, buy another. That's what I used to do, and that's how I've learned, and slowly build your collection. You don't have to go out and buy a £2,000 this piece. So look at my big rock if you want to, go for it. But you don't have to, and it's about you learning to work with crystals energy and them working with you. And you don't have to get 25 crystals at once. Get 3 or 4. I think everybody should have like your clear quartz, your master crystal, your amplifier, have your amethyst, keep you calm, citrine, bring in that little bit of wealth. We all need that from time to time. I always think tiger's eye, bring in a little bit of luck, a little bit of confidence. Green aventurine, bring in that success as well. And like for me, and rose quartz, remember that love. For me, those 6 crystals, are kind of like what everybody should have with them, because there'll be something that's going on every day, every week, every year that you can draw on from those crystals. And then one of the most important thing, I use selenite to cleanse and recharge my crystals. Don't need selenite when it's sunny. We're very lucky like it has been this year. It's been amazing. Leave them in the sun. That'll naturally re-energize them. When it's been a full moon, do you know what I mean? Put them out in the full moon. That will cleanse them. But I'm lazy bum. Next to my bed, my selenite. Get home, take my crystals off, put them on my pad. It will cleanse. It will recharge them. They're ready to go for the next day. Simple as that. And that's what I think, lovely. You don't need, bigger's not always better. More expensive's not always better. And I just always think your intuition, when you go in a crystal store, when you come to a crystal show, really, really trust your intuition, because there's a lot of people out there selling crystals. People are just doing it for a bit of a buck, bit of a money thing, feel that.
I think you can tell. Do you know what? I think you can tell with pricing when people are doing it for money. That is one of the things that I've found. You can tell when people are going, oh yeah, but that's quite rare, so it's 50 quid.
Yeah.
But actually, if you've bought that crystal from a reputable wholesaler, yes, it might be that little bit more expensive, but it doesn't have to be top at price range that people are charging. No. Do you know what I mean? So I think like tumbles, I think if you're buying a tumble between £1 and £2, you see, depending on what they are, I sort of think, well, you're fairly well, it's reasonable, is that?
Yeah, of course it is.
I mean, I've been in places where a little tumble's £4.50 for a sports, and I'm like, stop it. That's
why. Yeah, of course it is. But but you get people coming into our stores all the time and they go like, oh, Why are you not so expensive?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and I always say the same thing, we're fair. And that's
it.
how it should be, you know. And I said, but like this year, we were lucky enough to go to Tucson in Arizona, which we, you know, but
On my list.
yeah, I have been a nosy bugger all my life. And I always thought, well, okay, well, where have you got that crystal from? Where's it sourced from? You know, we're lucky. There's a gentleman we know called Alex that owns some of the mines, got a cooperative in Brazil, and we get majority of our amethyst from him. But before it's extracted, they can get pictures and things, and we know what's coming to the stores. And do you know what I mean? But that's because I've been a nosy. Where you getting this from? Where you getting that from? And that's just because growing up and things like that. And it's kind of like that's helped us build the connections we've got, you know. And then we put in the stores. But I can hand on heart say, well, I know where that comes from. I know when it got extracted. You know, a lot of people won't have a clue. You know, and I just always think if you know, some people are bothered, some people aren't bothered. But, you know, if you are bothered where they come from, just ask questions. You know, you'll soon get to know. And then if you're a bit, I'm not sure, step away. And that's it. Go and find somewhere, you know, where you feel comfortable, where people know their knowledge. Because at the end of the day, it's your journey, your wellness. And when you get your crystals, just cleanse and recharge them, and then they're yours. Simple as that.
Oh, it's been amazing talking today, Kris. I've really enjoyed myself.
Me too, lovely. It's been, we're just kind of new. I mean, from your podcast, I already feel like I know you anyway, lovely. I'm just waiting for me like bedtime ones. That'll be it. Now, when the stars go to sleep.
Oh, here, don't. Oh, I'm going to bring a range out now to see you. That's it.
You need to do it. You need to, seriously, and just like, oh, she's on. There we go. Going to sleep.
You see, Orchard, that's time to get everybody in there. Right, well, come on now. It's time to bed. Let's get you off to bed.
You know, you've had a hard day. Sleep time now. You know, and I got me Yorkshire brew, love, as well.
Bit of Yorkshire tea unless you're in. Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm going to do it. That's it. You've heard it here first. That's what's next.
Exclusive, love. Exclusive.
Explosive. Thank you very much for speaking with me. I'll speak to you soon.
We'll see you soon. Lots of love, darling.
You as well.
Bye, darling.
Thank you so much for listening to me, Stacey Bauer, on Guide to Spirituality podcast. If you enjoyed this chat, feel free to follow, share, or leave a review. It really helps. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and keep showing up for you. See you next time.